Does an excellent training. He's going to share with you a lot of stuff related to how to use the Outlook web interface. So the other option that Tom can assist you with is using Outlook as your interface to email and calendar. So we do have that as a additional plugin that we can install on your computers. So if you find that you need that environment, you need and are comfortable in Outlook, that's an option for you as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan, and thank you for attending.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Good morning. Good morning. You kind of get the idea already that I like participation. One, it makes me feel like I'm doing a decent job at what I'm trying to do. Two, and it makes great for the video. Hello, everyone. So this is a recorded session, so if your phones are off, that would be awesome. And the other thing is, who's afraid of me? What's going on here? We have plenty of seats up here if you want to come join us as well. Today we're going to be talking about Google and Google Mail and Calendar, the web interface, and how that is available to you. And like Ben said, the whole purpose of this training is just to show you what one of the options that is available to you when it comes to using the new Connect email and everything. So we have a fairly short-looking agenda, but it does take a couple hours, as most of you know. This is a 2-hour training, and I do not stop. You will find that this goes very fast because there's a lot to cover today. So as we go through the training, if you have questions, if you can do me a big favor, write them down, okay? Just write them down. You'll see that this course is broken up into different sections, and I actually pause periodically through those sections to take those questions that you may have. So instead of interrupting, which you'll find that, how many of you have seen the movie Up? I'm the dog. Okay, so you get the idea. I get distracted very easily. So if we can hold on to the questions till those times. We're going to take a quick introduction to apps, just some information you need to know. We're going to spend the majority of our time inside of Mail. Then we'll jump over to the calendar to see how that works. Then we're going to take a look at contacts, just so you can see a couple tools that will be available to you when it comes to working with your contacts, and then we'll wrap up. So let's jump into it. Why Google for education? First, security. Google does have a very robust security system behind everything that they do. Between encryption, between making sure that everything is under a secure layer, it's just one of the best security mechanisms that Google does offer. And one thing that I really appreciate about Google security is that they encrypt the data before it leaves your laptop and gets to their servers. And even when it's on their servers, it is heavily encrypted. Stuff that I could get into, but it'd probably bore me to death, so I won't do that. Another thing, too, is they're very proud to say that they're always available 99.9987% of the time. Google basically, they write into their own terms that they get 8 hours a year to crash. So that's pretty good, right? So that's the big thing, is security. The next thing with that as well is staying connected from anywhere. So we're making this available on your mobile phones, on your laptops, on your tablets. We want you to be able to get to your data. So we're going to do what we can to make sure that it is available to you by any means necessary. Another great way about staying connected from anywhere is being able to work better together. So we are also offering a couple other tools. There is no training offered on this, but it is available to you between Google Drive and Google Hangouts. Drive is a file management system with a cloud-based document editor, spreadsheet, presentation. Hangouts is a communication tool, instant messaging, things like that. Saw James using it this morning and stuff, so something you can use there. What's migrating? This is a very important slide. We have a yes column and a no column. So starting on the yes, first and foremost, the most important thing is your email. Any email that we saw, so basically everything on Exchange, we migrated over to Google. In fact, we've been doing it for a couple weeks now. You guys have a lot of data, I won't lie. So we've been doing that for a while. We've also migrated over your calendar events, okay? The big thing with your calendar events, check the recurring ones. That's one that I've found that, they can get a little wonky through a migration. So check all your events, but double check those recurring events especially. And we have migrated over your contacts. Now the big thing with those three is that's the data that we can actually see, okay? So anything that's hosted on Exchange. Where there's a yes column, there's also a no column. So first and foremost, notes and tasks, we don't have a very good equivalent to Outlook notes and tasks, so we don't migrate that. It's still in Outlook though. But when it comes to your email, the big thing is we don't migrate your archives. I know that's not a bullet point on here, but they're still available to you. That's an important thing to remember, is your archives will be available to you. Guess through what program? Outlook, okay? You can still open up Outlook, right? We're just not using it right now through the migration to communicate. Like we said, Tom will help you set up a tool that allow you to use Outlook, but the web interface for tomorrow is what you're gonna be using, okay? But the archives will always be available inside of Outlook. Another thing, we did not migrate emails with attachments larger than 25 megabytes. That's Google's cap on email limits, so we don't put anything over that. Again, still available inside of Outlook. Non-supported attachments, so things like your EXEs, things like that, not popular file types, but there are a few that were not migrated, so keep that in mind. In fact, I think through this round, I didn't see anyone with some non-supported attachments. You will need to recreate your signature, since that is now inside of Google's infrastructure. That's out of order still. I thought I fixed that. Rules and your filters when it comes to mail. That's the other mail item. You will need to recreate your rules and your filters that you may have had. When it comes to calendars, we did not migrate the attachments. Google handles calendar attachments a little bit differently. We'll take a look at that later. And when it comes to your contacts, the personal contact groups, we have our global ones, right? IT@ucsb.edu, right? That's still there. But the personal ones that you may have created inside of your contact list, you will need to recreate those as well because of how Outlook handles them. We don't see it. So you will need to recreate those. Any questions on this slide? Yes.
If we archive our Outlook emails to Google Drive, can we still access them?
Google doesn't have a program to open those properly. So let me just also say with that, there is a plan to get your archives onto Google. Ben, did you want to talk to that?
Sure, yeah, so if you have a central Exchange archive, we know about that already, and we're working with the Appearance to get that migrated over. So that'll come across and be in your Google inbox under a label called Archive or Exchange Archive.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that, but you have local PSPs, either on your machine or on a file server here, Tom or one of the other end user support techs will work with you to get those up to Google Drive, or we'll migrate those over as well.
Okay.
So until those are done, you still have access to those through Outlook,
Mm-hmm.
but over the next 3 weeks or so, they'll get migrated up to Google as well.
Okay.
Cool. Any others? Yes.
What happens with new email with large attachments? Is that okay? Was it just moving?
So internally, you already get an error right from the beginning. You can't upload anymore. Okay. From external clients, they will get a bounce back saying that that we don't receive large emails anymore, and that they will have to break that email up into smaller attachments. So that's total email size. Okay. That other program I talked about, Google Drive, that Ben also mentioned, that allows you to put large files up to 2 terabytes if you want to. I don't know how many of you work with large files, but you can put that onto Drive and then share it. So it's kind of like a Dropbox, right? So it's very similar to that. But when it comes to email, just because we put so much security around email, that's the email limit size, is 25 megabytes. So, yes.
I'll add one more thing on Google Drive. So those of you who had large attachments during the migration, you will have those emails in your migrated inbox. They'll have a link to where the file is on Google Drive. So you'll still have all of that content. There were about 1,500 of those large attachments in this current migration.
Mm-hmm.
So as you get through those in the future years, they're stored permanently. You have unlimited storage in your Google Drive. So part of kind of the next year will be getting comfortable with that as kind of a storage location for large attachments and for sharing out larger documents.
Yep. Cool. Yes, one more.
Okay. In Outlook, there was a setting that a lot of people didn't notice, but it hooked you up to social media if you were silly enough to use your email with Facebook. Do we have to worry about that? Or any sort of social media?
No. In fact, we discourage you from using your UCSB.edu for any type of social media.
Excellent. But I noticed that with Outlook, if certain people would email me, there's a bar underneath, and it would show me all of their social media activity
So
associated
that could be
with
one
the
of two
email.
things. One, it could have been a plugin put into Outlook, but two, it could also be like part of that user signature or something like that did
Okay.
that. So If it's on the user side, yes, it will still come over, but any plugins and stuff like that, it will not. So thank goodness. All right, let's keep on going. Support resources, things that are available to you. This is the most important link that you are going to see today, so go ahead and write this down. www.connect.ucsb.edu. You're going to use this link for everything from support to logging in. So make sure you understand that link right from the beginning. That when you get there, there's 3 buttons. One to log into mail, one to log into calendar. The third one has a lot of support resources. So definitely take a look at there. There's a lot of pages on there, which will give you the ability to quickly find the information you're looking for. So that's what we have. Google also offers their own support resource, Google Help. You can get it through support.google.com. or right from the mail interface or the calendar interface, which I prefer. So I'll point that out to you a little bit later. Just so you know, this one is pretty good. Google has the policy that when they make an update, they have to update their help pages first. So that's one resource that I personally use a lot. All right, so let's move on. We're going to get into mail. Where there's an agenda, there's a sub-agenda. So here what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at how to log into the interface and how to get there. We're going to take a tour of the interface so we understand how it's laid out. You'll see it's actually very familiar to a lot of the programs we're using. Now, Google is known for their search on the internet. We're going to see how that same search bar is used for just your mail and how powerful it can be. Then we're going to get into some mail management techniques, and that covers 2 topics. That covers labels and archive. Labels are replacing your folders, and we'll talk a little bit more to that. Don't worry, they're awesome. They work just like your folders, but they do a lot more too. And we're going to talk about archive. Google has archive, but it's very different from what most of us are used to using. We also have our own version of conversation threads. Outlook has it, Google has it, a lot of the programs these days have it, but we're going to see how Google's works. And then some various settings in Lab so we can customize our system. So to log in, most of you should have seen Google Chrome on your computers by now, hopefully for a little while. If you do not see Google Chrome on your computer, please file a ticket so we can get that. We prefer that you use Google Chrome. You don't have to, but it does work best on Google Chrome. So open that up, go to the, don't go to that link, go to the connect.ucsb.edu, right? And when you go in, you click log into mail, you'll be presented with this screen, okay? This screen, you will type in your full UCSB email address. So this is, by default, your UCSB net ID. How many of you know that? If you don't know that, we need to talk, I won't lie, at ucsb.edu. This is your new primary email address right now, okay? And I'll talk a little bit later how you can switch that to what you were used to using or something, another option that's available to you. But the email address you had, you'll still get email at. This new UCSB net ID email address, you will get email at. And the other one was first.last name at ucsb.edu. So you have a few options as to what email address you want to start telling users. Or telling your colleagues, whatever you want to put on your business card. But to log in, this is your primary email address, okay? Any questions there? All right. Now, I've already gone through all the steps of logging in because I'm lazy and I didn't feel like doing it right now. You'll also find that I make a lot of bad jokes, but you'll get used to it, I promise. Is that big enough for everyone? Okay. All right, so quick interface tour. Let's go and go through this. Starting in the upper left-hand corner, you will see the UCSB logo. Clicking on that will always bring you back to your inbox view. Next to that is a search bar. You'll use that to search. We'll talk about that. Next to that are these 9 little dots right here. This is the app launcher, and this is what you use to log into all the different applications. Again, we're going to look at calendar and contacts today, but you can see there's a lot more available to you, including that Drive program we talked about a little bit earlier. So once you log in, you have access to all your other Google applications available to you. Next to that, you'll see your profile icon. If you upload a photo, it'll put that up there. Hey, take a look at that guy. You'll also see your email address. So for those of you with personal gmail.com accounts or any other type of Google account, it's probably an important thing to look at to make sure you're actually in the correct account, especially when you send email to certain people, things like that. So always take a look at that as well. Back over here to the logo. Underneath that, you'll see this word mail. Clicking on this gives you the ability to jump into your contacts quickly if you need to. And there's also a task list available to you. It's a good task list. You put a task on there, set a due date, link it to an email if you need to. But that's about as far as it goes. They're not collaborative. You can't share things like that. Check it out. But for me personally, someone that has come from Outlook, I like Outlook's task tool a little bit more. So just keep that in mind. We all know what Compose does. These are your system views, so the different labels and things. You'll have system labels and custom labels like this boss one. That's one that I created. We'll talk to that in a minute. And then we have the actual messages that have come in. Messages that are new are white. Messages that have already been read are a little bit gray. And you'll notice that you can select messages, right? When you select a message, you'll notice that this action bar has appeared. This action bar lets you perform actions to the messages. Novel idea, right? So that's something to keep in mind. One of the popular ones under More is to mark it as unread. It's something that I do a lot. So now if I go there, do that, deselect that, you'll find that those two messages are now white. They're bold now, saying that they're unread messages. All right, also on every message is this star. This star can be used for whatever you want. Very familiar to the flag feature that we're all used to. When you click once, it will give you a yellow star. And again, use it for whatever you want. You can customize it, so that way the more times you click, you can get a different color star, or even a symbol if you want to. So there is a lot of customizations to that. Again, for whatever you would like to use to organize your mail. For me, I just have the blue star because I like blue more than yellow. And I star the messages I have to take care of today. That's how I take care of them. And one thing that's nice is, oh, I'm hiding it. Hold on, don't look. One thing that's nice is there is a starred view. So that way you can go and see all your messages that you have starred and take care of them from there. When you're done, you just hit that star again. It gets removed from the starred view. It's kind of cool there. So there's that there. Next to that is the sender's name. You'll see that some messages sometimes have more than one sender. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Next to that is the subject. Some messages here have a little bit of a gray text there. That's the snippet. That's a small preview of what's inside the message. You'll notice the icons here. The calendar little looking icon is for the event invitations, accepts, declines, things like that. What's the paperclip? Just making sure you're awake. Okay. Next to that is the timestamp. And you'll notice messages are always sorted chronologically. The latest message will always be on top, the oldest message on the bottom. You will notice that you cannot sort your inbox or your mailbox at all. We're going to talk through the different tools available to you to actually are a great alternative to sorting. One thing you'll also notice, messages sent today have the time. Beyond that, only have the date on them, but I can still hover over any timestamp and it will give me a pop out with the full date and time that the message was sent to me. Now, Google.com, known for searching the internet, right? So they took that search bar and they put it inside of your mailbox. One thing that's nice about this search bar is it is tailored just to your mail. And Google's actually done a really good job of giving you 3 different types of searches that you can utilize. A basic search, search options, and advanced search. Now when it comes to a basic search, think of Google.com. Let's say you want to look for puppies on Google. What do you type in? Puppies. Same concept for your email. If you want to look for something in your email related to a keyword, type it in. So if I type in training and press enter, you'll notice it searches my entire mailbox and finds every single message related to training. Now this is looking everywhere. Looks in the to field, the from field, the subject line, including the CC and BCC. It looks inside the body, and it looks at your file names of your attachments. We're not going to look inside of your attachments, but we're going to look at the file name. So the word training shows up somewhere. Does that make sense? All right. Now let's say you want to refine your results. I know I only have 5, 6 here, right? Let's say I had 600. How would I refine that? More words. I want to find puppies. Well, I want to find labs, right? So you just type that in. In this case, you kind of saw it when I was typing. I'll type in training conversation, and it narrows it down to that one email that I was looking for, right? So the more criteria you put into the system, the more narrowed down your search results will be. Now, keep in mind, where does it look? Everywhere, right? So if I type in someone's name, like James, and press enter, I want you to notice in the senders list, I get a lot of messages from people who are not James. There's one from Sandy and Anne. There's me, right? Why do those emails show up? Anyone?
They were sent to James?
James was a CC probably, or on the to field. Maybe we're talking about him behind his back. Not that we would do that to you, James. Maybe it's the other James. There we go. Yeah, definitely that. But you get the idea, right? The word James shows up somewhere in that email. Does that make sense? So that's where we kind of get into the more advanced ways that we can search. So starting over, clicking UCSB logo to go back to my inbox. When we search, you may have noticed this little down arrow over here on the right side of the screen. This is your search options. So now I can say I'm looking for messages from a specific person, maybe two, maybe certain keywords in the subject, or even exclude words. And you'll even notice towards the bottom there, I can specify it has an attachment or not. I can specify sizes, so maybe I'm looking for those large presentations, things like that. So there are a lot of options that you can utilize. So now when I type in James, notice that it's starting to look through the people I communicate with, right? And now I can start saying, I'm actually looking for messages from James Kantrim, fills in his email address, and now I can search for that. And there's all the messages from James. Does that make sense there? Wonderful. Now, how many of you have filters or rules on side of Outlook today? So quite a few of you, okay. If you need to recreate those, this is how you actually do it. You do it through here. Every filtering and rule tool out there has two questions. One is, what am I looking for? Well, we already told it. Look for messages from James Kantrim. Does that make sense? Okay. So instead of searching, right, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a filter with this search instead. And it's going to ask me the second question. What do you want me to do with the messages from James Kantrim? And so I can say skip the inbox, star it automatically apply a label. So there are a lot of options available to me when it comes to doing this. And you can do more than one. Star it and apply a label, the boss label, since he's my boss today. All right, and I can create the filter. And once I do that, from here on out, any message from James will have those two rules applied to it. Does that make sense? Wonderful. So that's how that works there. So the last way you can search is the advanced search, and we use these key terms called operators. Operators are simple words like the word from, the word to, and one of my favorites, the word is. Okay. Now to mark an item as an operator, it's the operator, a colon, and your search criteria. Okay, so from, colon, someone's name. Does that make sense? So let me show you how those work. We'll pick on James still, so I'll type in from. Again, what do I have to add? The colon. If I don't add that, it looks for the word from. Okay, keep that in mind. So colon, and you'll notice there's a couple of James right there. I want that one. Boom. There's the same result. Works with to as well. Okay. Another one I like is. Allows me to select the status of the message. So is, it kind of works like status and location kind of in a sense. So you'll notice inbox is a suggestion. But I can say is unread. And here are all of my unread emails. I bet you I have more than you. But just like a basic search, you can use more than one if you want to. So I can say is unread from Sandy, right? So from colon Sandy, search for that, boom. There's those two emails from Sandy that I happen to have not read. Does that make sense? All right, so that's search. Any questions? Yes?
Did you say that this search does not actually read the text of the email itself?
It reads the text of your emails. It doesn't read inside of your attachments.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Search looks everywhere. So, with the exception of inside of your attachments, it will look for the file name. So if you're looking for that one PowerPoint, you can search for that. Ooh, and it kind of brings up another thing. When it comes to that advanced search, those were just a couple terms that I gave you. But if you go to google.com and do a search for Gmail advanced search, advanced, there it is. The first article you see is a full list of all the operators available to you. So to, from, subject is on there. You can look for a label, has attachment. Even one that's in here is the ability to find a specific file name if you ever need to. So yeah, there's a lot in here. So essentially you can search for an email based on any type of criteria it matches. So keep that in mind there. So yeah, google.com, look for Gmail advanced search. Any other questions? All right, so now we're gonna get into mail management. And when we get into mail management, I wanna first talk about Outlook and how it managed your mail. Outlook was a file-based management system, okay? That's an important thing to remember. And by that, I basically mean a filing cabinet, okay? Outlook was literally a filing cabinet. So messages would come into your inbox, right? And from there you would open it. What would you do with it?
Read it.
Read it, okay, after that. You guys are smart with me, right? You would file it away, right? You would file it away or throw it away, right? So that's the key things we did. Now here's the big problem with the filing cabinet type of way of organizing is how many places can you put a piece of paper? How many folders can you put a piece of paper in? One, right? So here's my organization system, and you can tell me if it matches yours. I have a folder for everything, right? I have a folder for my important emails. I have a folder for messages just from my supervisor. I have a folder for every single project that I work on. So here's the situation, is I get an email from my boss that's really important about this project. Where do I put it? See, I saw a lot of you like, yeah, that's my life right now, right? So that's something that I ran into a lot, and we all know that duplicating that email will not work, right? So this is where Google kind of changes things with these two terms, labels and archive. Now, labels are just like your folders, but they do a lot more, okay? And we're going to see how your labels will allow you to put multiple labels on a single email. Archive also exists. But archive traditionally meant taking messages off of the Exchange server and putting them somewhere. Some of you put them locally into PST, some of you had a repository on the server somewhere, but it literally meant taking messages off of the Exchange system and putting them somewhere else. Google doesn't believe in that either. So we're going to see how archive basically hides your messages from your inbox view. Okay? Now, to understand Google, I like to use the bucket example. All of your messages are stored in one location, literally thrown into one giant bucket. And just like we saw in the email, it'll fall in chronologically. The oldest message is on bottom, the latest on top, right? But we use a labeling system. You'll see those 4 labels over there. What's that first label? Inbox. Your inbox is a label. It is not a location, okay? That's an important thing to remember through this. So we can see in here, when we click inbox and we're in the inbox view, what the system's doing is it's looking through this giant bucket and saying, oh, these are the emails with the inbox. That is all I'm going to show you is those messages only with the inbox label on it. Does that make sense? And as you start to apply your custom labels like label A, every time you click on that label, it's basically searching through the entire box and only showing you the messages with label A. Same thing with label B. Looks through the entire box and only shows you the messages with that. The key thing with that is I want you to notice that especially with this first message, it had all 3 labels on it, okay? So when I click on inbox, it'll show up there. When I click on label A, it shows up there. When I click on label B, it shows up there. Is it duplicate copies? No. It's only one copy of that email ever. It just happens to show up in different views. It's that favorite song that we all have from Blink-182. Right? But it shows up on multiple playlists. It's the same concept there, right? Oh, come on. I know they brought out an album lately, and I'm like, really? You're making me feel old now. Anyway, so that's how that works. Now let's actually take a look at how it works. So first and foremost, let's start with the labels, okay? Your inbox is a label. Remember that. Now, to create the labels, no, let's rewind. Your folders that you have today inside of Outlook, we put those in here as labels. That's an important thing to remember. So we do recreate those for you from the beginning, okay? To create more, there is a More button over here on the left-hand side of the screen, and on the bottom of this list is Create New Label. When I click on this, I can now create a label like Projects, press Enter, and there it is. There's the Projects label, right? So that's how easy it is to create them. Now, how many of you have folders? Folders inside of folders? Inside of folders? Inside of folders? Okay, you guys get the idea? You still do that. So projects, I have more than one project that I work on. So I can come over here and you'll notice when I hover, this little down arrow appears. Click on that, and under here is Add Sublabel on the bottom of this list. When I click on that, now I can say Project ABC, press Enter, and you'll notice the caret appears and I can expand it. There's ABC, right? Same thing again, click down on there, and I'll create a project XYZ. Now let me show you my favorite feature about labels. I love these suckers, I won't lie. You can color code them, right? So when you have a project like UCSB, whose colors are, okay, just make you guys are concerning me a little bit. Like blue and gold, I can come over, let's say this was UCSB, click on that down arrow, there's label color, right? And now I can color code my labels. So that one will be blue, and I'll make XYZ. We'll make this one green. You'll see that boss already had a color code next to it. One thing that also does for me personally is also tells me the difference between the system labels and the ones that I have created. So it's kind of a nice thing to do there as well. Now, when it came to the folders inside of Outlook, how would you put a message inside of a folder? Drag and drop, right? So I'll take this message right here, drag it over to ABC, drop it, no longer in my inbox. Same behavior, right? That's what we've always done, and you can still do that today. Guess what happens when I click on label ABC? There's the message. Does that make sense? So you can still do that today. That behavior is not changing, and it won't. I would go mad if that changed. But here's where labels are a little bit different. So we saw how to create them. We created our nested. You color-coded them. That's an important thing for me personally. But we've always dragged from the right to the left. And Google's saying now, if you want to, you can drag from the left to the right and apply your labels to your messages. What view am I in? Inbox. I'm still in my inbox, and I can drag and drop. That easy. Ooh, someone got excited. But you guys get the idea there, right? So now this one message right here with the green little check mark on it, this message right here is in my inbox view, but also in what other view? The boss view, right? So here's where we get even more fun, right? Oh, not what I wanted. Hello. Drag and drop. Drag and drop. How many labels are on that single line item now? 3. So now this message from that good-looking guy right there, this one message shows up in the inbox view. Do we see the inbox label? No. Why? That's the view we're in, right? So now if I go to the boss label, there's that message. But do we see the boss label? Why? All right, you guys are getting it. Good. So you guys get the idea. There's only one copy ever of this email. We're not duplicating it, right? There's only one instance of that email, and it just happens to show up in all these different views. That's just a big thing. Does that make sense? The other thing you can do with these, by the way, when you're in here and you have one selected, there is a labels drop-down that you can utilize to add and remove your labels if you want to. And when you're inside of an email, right, you can still drag and drop. You'll see the labels get added right after the subject. And there's that labels drop-down again. So I can add more labels on here if I need to. And even remove them. You'll see the little X next to those. Does that make sense for everyone? Wonderful. All right, before I take questions, let me do archive real quick, okay? Now, archive. We actually have an archive button available for every single email, okay? But here's the big thing. Archive does not remove email from the system and put it somewhere else. Archive simply hides messages from the inbox view. How do we hide messages from the inbox view? We remove the inbox label. That's all we do, okay? This message shows up in the inbox because it has that label. Any emails that come in automatically get the inbox label. Does that make sense? Unless there's a rule or a filter telling you otherwise, that's the rule. So you can either click the X on inbox label or you can click on archive. And this message from Anne will no longer be in my inbox view, okay? I can also select messages like this one here. There's that archive button. Click it, no longer in my inbox view. I can select multiple messages if I want to. Archive it. And I want you to notice, are there any other labels on these? No other labels, right? I can still archive them, right? No longer in my inbox view. So now it raises the question, where the heck did they go, right? So I already showed you 2 out of the 3 ways available to you. What's the first one? Starts with an S, ends in urch. Search, right? You guys like that one, right? You guys are a good crowd. I like you guys. All right, so I archived a message from Anne. So I'll do a specific search from Anne. Search. Here's all my messages from Anne. And what's cool about running these searches is that's the view we're in. We're in a search view, right? So it shows us everything. So it tells me the top 3 emails are in my inbox view, correct? All right, and that is, oh, and this one is in my inbox view as well, right? So it tells you where they're still also located, right? They're in this giant bucket, but it shows you also what views they show up in, right? So I can also see when it comes to these, I can see that, you know, they also show up in different views as well. Does that make sense for everyone? See how search will be awesome for that? Cool. And I want you to notice also this middle chunk right here. Do they have any other views on them? No. They're just in this bucket of email, right? And you only see it here because it matched the search criteria. Does that make sense? What's the second way? I showed you search. The other one is labels, right? You click a label, So when I click on a certain label, you'll notice the top two, are they in my inbox? But the bottom one is, right? But the top two show up in other views, right? So you get the idea of how you can also archive, but still have them available in other views. When I click that archive button, it only removes the inbox label. It doesn't touch the other labels, only the inbox label. Does that make sense? Okay. The last way I did not show you, but is available to you, is an all mail view. It might be hidden under this more menu, but I put mine up here so I could show you for training. But this all mail view literally shows you everything. Shows you the messages you've received, shows you the messages you've sent, since the one's labeled with me, right? And it also shows you your drafts if you have any drafts in your system. So that all mail literally shows you all of your mail with two exceptions, your trash and your spam. Because who wants to look at that, right? Which, by the way, that trash and spam is hidden under this more view, okay? If you ever need to look at those. One last thing, archive is not delete. Archive is hiding it from your inbox view, making it always available to you, right? When you hit delete, it puts it in your trash. Okay? And it sits in your trash for 30 days. After 30 days, it is gone. Does that make sense? Wonderful. Ben?
Can I mention the one thing on spam? So for the first few weeks, you probably do want to go in there just because the system is learning what's spam and what's not. So Tom can help you, but it would make sense if something's in spam and it's actually not, you can de-spam it. And Google will learn not to spam that again.
Yeah. No, that's an important point because, again, like Ben said, the system's learning. It's still new for you guys, so it's still learning. You guys, the whole point of these phases is to help the system learn more and more as we go along. So definitely check your spam. I'd say for the first couple weeks, that's a good timeline to check. If you see something that's not spam, click it. There's a button that says not spam. Puts it in your inbox. Cool. Any other questions? Yes.
So if archive is not a label, but you want to look at, you want to access and see all your messages that are archived, how do you get to them? How do you view them all? So
you do have the all mail view available to you, but you'll notice that the all mail view still shows you things in your inbox. It shows you everything, right? So that's one way you can do it. If you wanted to see all the messages that were not in your inbox, that would be a search, right? So you would do negative in inbox, so saying not in inbox. That would be the search term. So.
And that would show what's archived.
Correct. So, and even this shows you technically everything that's archived. The top 4 are in my inbox view, and then we have a good chunk following that that are not. So those are technically archived, but they're still in the system. We're not putting them anywhere else. So, yes.
So you technically just could create a label called archive.
If you wanted to do it that way, yeah, you could definitely do that.
You could open up that label.
Yeah.
I was saying that's good again. Just saying.
No, it's definitely been a recommendation that I've seen in the past where, you know, I've had people that say, you know, for my own sanity, I need an archive location, right? So that they can actually see. So they created a label, right? And they put an asterisk in front so it's always on top, right? And they basically say when I want to archive it, I put it in the archive label. But it also has other labels on it, so it's just another label on top of what you've been doing. So definitely a good idea, yes.
Yeah, and on those lines, as I mentioned, so if you have archived PSTs, which are the Exchange archive format, you'll have those labels in your Google inbox that say Exchange archive as that archive location.
That's a good point too. So for a lot of you, it'll already be there. Here. One last question, yeah.
Total mail limit?
It's a good question. It's an important one too. There is no email limit. So we, really? I thought you guys would be like, woo! No, one thing that's nice about this is there is unlimited space, right? The only limit you have is that 25 megabyte per email, right? Because of the encryption tool that we use. But the actual total space, you have unlimited storage. That is across Google Mail and your Google Drive that we are also making available to you. So that 2 terabyte file, put it up there if you want to. Hopefully you don't have a 2 terabyte file, but yeah, you guys get the idea. You have as much space as you need. So, cool. How many of you would ever receive that message you're running out of space? Say goodbye to that. It's gone. So, cool. It's gone from Google, right? Maybe not from Outlook if it still gets errors. One last one. Yeah.
Did you get rid of the domain name for the departments? Is that right?
No, we are still retaining those. I worked with housing, right? So a lot of them had first.last at housing.ucsb.edu. That is still there. And if you receive email at your local domain name, you're still going to receive it in here, right? We've associated it to here correctly. So you can still continue to give out that email address if you want to, but just know that we've also given you your net ID at ucsb.edu, and we've given you your first.last name at ucsb.edu. So those 3 email addresses, what you've had and those 2 new ones, you can give those out as much as you want, and they still show up here. Okay? The one you use to log in, though, is your net ID. So keep that in mind. Cool? Yeah, you guys got some gears turning. I already see it. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I do have oh my gosh, I'm a little bit behind, but we'll be okay. All right, so Google does have their own versions of conversation threads. They're interesting. Yeah, that's the word I'll use. All right, we'll stay there. In this view, it says 1 through 15 conversations is what it means. In here, I have about 30 emails. Okay, where are the hidden emails? In the threads. And how do you recognize the threads? Anyone see it? No? Let me point out this guy right here. You see the number 7? Also on this one, it also has the number 7. Right? That is a conversation thread. And that number 7 tells me there's a total of 7 emails inside of this one line item. Okay? That's an important thing to remember. The way we group them together is basically by the subject. Okay? It's a lot smarter than that. So those of you that have the weekly summary email that goes out every week, right? We still know the difference between this week's weekly summary and next week's weekly summary. Does that make sense? All right. So a few behaviors to recognize with your conversation threads. These are very important behaviors. Opposite of how your inbox is laid out, the oldest message appears on the top, the latest message appears on the bottom. I see 3 of you rolling your eyes already. Come on. Now think about it. Why? How do you read a report?
That's what started it all.
Right? That's what started. That's the order it comes in. So I, as you can see up there, I started this conversation, and then James replied 6 hours ago at 4:05 a.m. Oh my gosh, why were you up? And then Brett replied at 4:17 a.m. She just adopted that dog, so you know this is Kristen's dog. That's not Kristen. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Then Brett replied, then Ann replied, then James replied. You guys get the idea there, right? Oldest on top, newest on bottom. But think about why. All you have to do is read down. Down. That's the only direction you have to go, right? No more of like, okay, let me find the first email on the bottom, then scroll up a little bit, read down that, scroll up again. Don't have to do that anymore because it takes care of that. And when you reply, you know how it had all those replies underneath? It's still there. We just hide it because you already read it. Does that make sense? So that's a key thing to remember there. This is also the danger of not checking your emails before a training. Anyway, and then when we look here, there's another behavior we need to learn. If you have already read the email, it will be collapsed like that first one up there. If it is brand new to you, it will be expanded, okay, saying you have not read this email yet. Does that make sense? So now if I go back out to my inbox, there it is again, right? But now this time the thread is marked as read, the status. And when I open it, you'll notice all of the messages are collapsed with one exception. The latest message will always be expanded. Does that make sense? So those are 2 behaviors that you need to learn. Oldest to newest, already read, brand new, with the exception. Does that make sense? Wonderful. Things that you need to know as well. First and foremost, let me apply label. There's only one subject. That's how we're grouping it together, so we only show you the subject once. After that subject, we will show you your labels. Your labels apply to all of these messages, okay? So keep that in mind. So once I apply the boss label, it's for all of them. Does that make sense? Wonderful. All right. Okay, and that's a notification. Go away. Forgot to turn that off. Anyway, archive. When I click archive, it removes this entire thread from the inbox view. But guess what happens if someone were to reply to it? It comes back into my inbox, right? So that's the key thing to remember. So I can archive this and not worry about not seeing emails because unless there's a rule applied to it, right? If someone replies to this, it will come back into my inbox view and it will still have that boss label on it, and I'll see that in my inbox view as well. So it's an important thing to remember there as well. Delete will delete the entire thread up there, and again, like I said, your labels apply to the entire thread. There are options to expand all of these all at once, even put these in a printer-friendly view if you want to as well. So keep that in mind there as well. And you can pop it out into a new window for those of you that work with multiple emails at once. Okay. Now let's click on this one from Kristen. You'll notice all you have to do is click on it and it opens it up. That's nice, get out of here. There are actions you can do to individual messages as well. So from this message right here, I could reply just to Kristen. Does that make sense? And in here, I could forward this message from that point. And keep in mind, when you forward an email, it still has those predecessing emails, right? So that's still there. You click forward to include this email and the ones that we saw earlier with it. That's an important thing to remember. How many of you go in there and like delete some stuff that you don't want people to see? You can still do that. It looks exactly the same, okay? You can also print just this email because look at that dog, come on, right? You can also delete this message, report as spam, show original, things like that. So there are a lot of options that you can do, like I said, on top to the entire thread, and there are options you can do to individual messages, okay? One last thing with threads on the very bottom is the default reply box, okay? From here you have three options, especially in a group situation. We have reply, reply to all, and forward, okay? Now this box works off of the latest message. So if I click reply, who am I replying to? James, right? So you guys see that. If I click reply to all, it's only going to reply to all the people in that line item, okay? So in those group situations where you're adding more people, hopefully not removing people, things like that, it's going to pull that information off the latest email, okay? So it's an important thing to remember. And speaking of which, let's just go in here. Let's say we're going to reply to all. When we go in here, you'll see it's telling me I'm sending it to James, Ann, and 5 more people. I can click on this and it's going to show me the 5 more people that it's sending it to. Does that make sense there? So you can go in here and you can say, oh, I want to remove James, or I want to add someone, or I want to BCC someone. So all those options are still available to you there. In here, we're missing a line item. What is it? Your subject. How do we group your messages together? Subject. That's basically how we do it. So we don't make it available to you, because once you change the subject, you're starting a brand new thread. Does that make sense? Now, in those cases where you do need to change your subject, there is this change type of response. So you hit reply all, you meant to hit reply, or you meant to hit forward. So you can change that there if you need to, but you can also edit your subject here if you need to as well. When you do that, it opens it up in a new box here. Notice the previous replies in there, right? So we can see all that information in there. Looks exactly like Outlook, right? Still there, so keep that in mind. Can add my reply, can remove the information I want, and I can change my subject if I need to, okay? Any questions about your threads?
When you do that, it puts the latest one on top though.
So that's a good point, good question. You know, it groups the messages together for what you've actually received, okay? So if I take this message and I send it to you right now, this is what you will see, because this is where you join the conversation. It doesn't give you it doesn't give you all this, right, in this nice view here, because of the fact that you are not on it. So for those of you where you get added onto the email 50 messages in, this is what you will see. And then from here on out, it will be grouped together.
Guess what I'm saying, when you hit reply or forward, it puts it upside down.
Basic, yeah, it does. So, cool. I'm gonna hit discard. By the way, if you click that X, it just closes this little pop-up and it's still saved as a draft. But if you hit this little trash can down here on the bottom of the screen, it actually removes it. So keep that in mind there, okay? All right. Any other questions? No? No? All right. We'll have plenty of time at the end as well, so don't worry about that there. All right, we all like to customize things here and there. So to do that, we're gonna go into our settings, and that is done through the settings gear drop down. Now, when you click this, initially it will give you some quick settings that you may want to go into, such as your theme or your, what do they call it, the density. But another thing I want to point out real quick is help, right? This is Google's help tool. It's built into Mail. It's a great help tool. So if there's something in here that you don't understand, that you want some clarity on, just click that help tool for quick access to something that Google can help explain to you. Where we're going to focus, though, is in actual settings. So we're going to click into settings. There are quite a few tabs available to you. A lot of you will see this setup progress bar that goes away after a while. So you'll see it tomorrow when you go in. It'll say you're 10% done because you logged into your account. But you can go through the steps if you'd like to. It helps you out with setting up your signature and things like that. But definitely don't fret about it because it does disappear after a little while. Okay. Other things to be aware of. For me personally, I like changing my default reply to reply all, especially in those conversation situations. So that way, you know, I don't accidentally hit reply when I click that box, that it's replying to the entire team. I'm a big fan of saying, if you're having a conversation with a team, keep it with the team. If you need to have a one-off, start a new email. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's that. Speaking of those conversations, you can turn them off. A lot of people find them very frustrating. I did personally. Actually, I really hated conversation threads when I first started them, but now I'm a big fan because we can't sort. So those of us that sorted by subject, this is the alternative. So I do encourage you to leave your threads on. Leave them on for a few weeks. That's how you learn a new habit, right? Is by keeping on doing it. So keep them on and you'll see that they work out very well. Undo send. This is turned off by default. Go turn it on, okay? And here's what undo send is. How many of you are familiar with message recall if it is available to you? Okay, a couple of you. How many of you it actually worked? Oh, wow, okay. Lies. It did not work for me personally. You know, you'd hit message recall and someone's like, I saw that email you sent. You're like, dang it. Anyway, but you guys get the idea. Undo send is not message recall. Undo send is delayed send. So hence that send cancellation period for 10 seconds, right? Basically, that's saying I get 10 seconds to take it back. Does that make sense? Now, some university on the East Coast did this study saying the average human changes their mind on a decision within 45 seconds. Google said that's awesome. We'll give you 30. You guys like that one? All right. That's the key thing I also encourage you to change it to is 30 seconds. Okay, so that way, basically all it does is once you send your email, you're going to get a button on top that says, do you want to undo it? And after 30 seconds, it disappears. Does that make sense? And that at that point, it is actually sent, and no, you cannot get it back. Okay. The stars.
Does it, sorry.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
Does it send the person that little email that it used to, like, this has been recalled?
No, because basically what it's doing is it's holding it in your system for that 30 seconds, and it doesn't actually send it until after that. So, good question. Like I mentioned earlier, you only get a yellow star, but this is where you customize them. You can drag them up to what you want to use. You can even drag into which order you prefer them to be used in. So that is available to you there. I just stick with the 4-star preset for training. Your desktop notifications. There's two things you have to do. The first one is to actually click this link, right? Because that's basically saying, allow this mail program to send Chrome notifications, okay? So you have to click this link and then choose which notifications you want. Hopefully you want all mail notifications there. Keyboard shortcuts are also available to you. You do have to turn them on, but one thing that's also nice about the shortcuts is you can hit Shift and question mark on your keyboard, and it will show you all the shortcuts that are available to you. Again, Shift and question mark brought this up. Now, when it comes to your keyboard shortcuts, some are the same. Bold, italicized, underline, those are the same, but some are different because now we're in a web browser. One example is when we would indent, we would push tab, right? But now it's brackets that we use to indent. So keep that in mind. Some are changed, some are drastically changed, some have slightly changed, such as aligning. You have to add the shift key in there, okay? So take a look at this list, again, shift and question mark. On the bottom of this list are some of the more Google Mail function type keyboard shortcuts. You can press the letter C to compose, the letter R to reply, the letter A to reply to all, the letter F to forward, the letter E to archive. Those are the 5 that I use. So that's something for you to keep in mind there. You can print this out in the new window view if you want to, but yeah, definitely available to you there. Profile photo, you can add that there if you need to. Signature, you will need to recreate your signature, so keep that in mind as well. That's found under this general settings. And your out of office reply is here as well. Now, we mentioned earlier that we are making available to you an Outlook connector tool, so you can use Outlook with this being still the back of the interface. If you go on vacation, your Outlook vacation responder will not work. You have to set it here, okay? Keep that in mind. All right, so that's the first tab, general. Next one is labels. This is where we can manage our labels that we've created and the system labels. When it comes to system labels, you cannot delete these. You cannot delete your inbox and think you'll be fine by not getting any work, right? False. But you can choose if you want to see or hide certain ones. So the starred view that I mentioned earlier, I can hide that, right? No longer in this view, but hidden under that more menu. So basically, it's just hiding the views you don't use a lot. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, as I scroll down, these are the custom ones that I've created. I can click on the name to change the name. Maybe I spelt it wrong or something like that. I can do that. I can show and hide my labels. I like to consider it like a label archive by hiding it under there. So the projects I mentioned earlier, my projects end. It's always sad. We have our goodbyes. And all I do, because I don't want to delete that label, I just hide it under that More menu. So I don't have to see it unless I absolutely need it. And from here, you can also delete your labels. The key thing with deleting your labels, if you hit, oops, I didn't mean to, but if you delete the top label, it will delete the labels underneath it. Keep that in mind there. And you'll notice with the 2, it says I'm deleting about 6, or it's affecting about 6 conversations. It's not deleting the emails. It's only deleting the labels. Does that make sense? All right, so there's that. Hit delete. Emails are still there. I can search for them. They just don't have the label on it. Does that make sense? All right. Accounts tab. This is an important one for those of you, actually for all of you. I don't have it, but for you guys, you'll see your new UCSB NetID email address. You will see your old email address that you've had. So you're like, what was your old email address? I'm sorry. I'll just use housing.ucsb.edu. You'll see that email address. And then you'll see another one, first.last@ucsb.edu, right? You'll see those here, and you'll see a button right here next to most of those that says make default or make primary. So if you want to send mail on behalf of a certain email address, you can make that the primary, and that's what email will be sent from. Does that make sense? Again, if anyone emails you at any of those 3 addresses, it'll still show up here. Okay? This is basically the identity of who you're sending email from. Okay? So there's that there. Filters and blocked addresses. This is where you can manage that filter that we just created earlier in the lesson. Labs are basically added functionality to your system. Okay, take a look at this list. It's a great list, and just an example of some labs that are available to you. The Google Calendar gadget. Basically, it put this under these 3 little dots. It put a preview of my calendar inside of my mail. Okay, so I can see that without having to actually open my calendar. Preview pane is something I really like. I'll show you that here in a second. An unread message icon. You'll notice up here on the very top in this tab, it has a little number 11 right there, indicating I have 11 unread emails. So those are my 3 favorites. Check out this list. There's a lot in here that is available to you that you can utilize. The preview pane that I mentioned earlier has to do with this button right here. For those of you that like the layout that Outlook gives you, you can turn that on. So now I have my views, the emails in that view, and when I open an email, there it is. You'll notice with the projector resolution, it doesn't look great, but that's just because of that. But you get the idea there. It also gives you the option to do a horizontal split if you prefer having that instead. So there are different views available to you. And one thing that's nice is it is toggleable, so I can turn it off and turn it back on and turn it off again if I need to. So that is available to you there. Okay? Things that we covered in today's lesson on mail. First, how to log in. Remember that link, connect.ucsb.edu. That's an important one to remember. We took a tour of the interface. We talked about search. Remember, you have basic search options and advanced searches. We talked about mail management, which covers labels. Remember, just like folders, you can still drag from the right to the left all you want, but we also talked about how they do a lot more for you and how you can drag from the left to the right now in color coding, right? We also talked about archive, which does not remove emails. It simply hides them from the inbox view. That's all it does. Okay. Conversation threads, the big 2, remember there, oldest on top, newest on bottom. If it's collapsed, you've already read it. If it's expanded, it's brand new. And some various settings and labs to customize your system. Any questions? Yes?
We're always going to be working from the browser, is that right? Or are you just doing that for demonstration today?
Demonstration today, and there's a good chance because we only have one Tom. It's going to take a while for Tom to hit all of your machines to put that connector on, and we can't do it until starting tomorrow, right? So there's a good chance that tomorrow morning, if you need to get onto your email first thing, you're going to have to use the web interface. Okay.
And it's a good thing to be familiar with the web interface so that you can go in there and do your auto replies, your signature, your rules and filters, so that when you're somewhere else and your phone died, you can log into a computer and get to your email from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great tool to know how to
Mm-hmm.
use.
Yeah, and this is personal opinion for me. Also, as a user that has used Outlook, I actually really prefer the web interface now over Outlook because I don't have to launch a program. It's just through my web browser. And everything that you've seen that I've taught works exactly the same on my mobile device. So I personally use the Gmail and the Google Calendar applications, and everything there matches on my phone exactly. So that's one thing. It's all personal opinion on what you prefer to use. But again, the Outlook tool, that will be made available to you as soon as we're able to get to your machine. So, and we have to do that with you, just so you guys know. Yes?
Can you create multiple signatures?
You cannot. There's only one signature. But one thing you can do, there's a lab, one of those labs I mentioned, it's called Canned Responses. For me in IT, I send an email a lot that says, welcome to UCSB. This is your UCSB net ID. This is your temporary password. My fingers bleed if I type that too much, right? So under Canned Responses, I can say, insert this text. And it basically, for me, I use it for full email addresses, but I've seen a lot of like admin assistants use it for multiple signatures as well. So it is an option for you to use. Again, labs, under settings, turn on Canned Responses. That's what you're looking for.
And I have 2 email accounts.
Mm-hmm.
One is for public records.
Mhm.
It's pra.ehns.ucsb.edu.
Mhm.
So what's that gonna, and then I have my own email, Mary Terrell Simpson, blah, blah,
So
blah.
you can, there's a couple of ways to do this, but if you wanted to use the web browser, you could make yourself a delegate for the functional account and toggle back and forth between the two, or you can use a different web browser for each account and just keep it separate that
Mhm.
way. Eventually you'll be able to do Outlook and have both of the accounts if that's how you prefer to do, but there are ways to do this in Outlook.
Yeah.
But both accounts aren't going to transition over to my UCSB net ID,
Yes.
Mary?
No,
No,
they
no.
will be separate. They will be separate accounts.
Both accounts are going to be Connect accounts now. That's an important thing to
Right,
remember.
I get that.
But they do have separate logins. And you can log into both of them at the same time through different web browsers or different versions of Chrome. So there are ways around it.
Different windows of Chrome? Could I
Yeah.
open up 2 windows?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think one of the best things is we'll get Tom to come
Yes.
sit with you and
Yes.
help you out with that. So good question. Cool. Any other questions? What time is it? What time did we start?
9:30.
9:30. Okay. All right. We're doing all right. That's always an important thing. Know when you started versus when you have to actually end. So, all right. So that was mail. I hope you guys learned a lot with that one. Now we're going to transition over to calendar. Calendaring tools are the same throughout. So basically what you're going to learn today is how we handle some of the information that your calendar actually uses. So to get in, we're going to see how to get to our calendar. We're going to take a tour of the interface. We're going to see the different types of calendars that are available to you. We're going to look at creating events and the details that we can put inside of them, how to manage those events, so just some information you need to know around that, and some various settings and labs to be aware of when it comes to working on your calendar as well. All right, so let's switch back over here. How many of you remember how I get to my calendar? The app launcher, the 9 little dots. Some people call that a waffle. That's the first I've heard of someone call that, but hey, it works. Click on that, and guess what's under here is your calendar. When I click on that, I want you to notice your calendar opens in a new tab, okay? So one thing that's nice about that is, what do I have to do to get back to my mail? You just click over here, right? Boom, there it is. Mail, calendar, calendar. If I go to the app launcher to open my mail, it opens another tab on my mail. If I want to get back to my calendar and I do it through the app launcher, it opens another tab on my calendar, right? We have a name for the people that do that. We call you tab stackers. And my motto is don't be a tab stacker, okay? Mainly because it really slows down your computer. Chrome is a memory sucker for your computer. So if you keep opening these tabs of the same program over and over again, it really slows down your computer. So keep that in mind. Once you open up your mail, it's open. You know, if you open up your calendar, your mail's still there. Just switch between the two, okay? Yes?
Is there a timeout?
There is no timeout.
So you could log in the morning, stay on?
Okay, sorry, that kind of timeout.
Yeah, that time. So, yeah, does it kick you off?
It will kick you off. I just don't know the time period as to when it does that. It's a few days at least, so yeah. Yes.
So will you still have the ability to have the calendar on your desktop? So if you don't want to go into Google Mail, you just want to open up the calendar to check your events, you can still do it through an icon on the desktop?
There are Chrome plugins that allow you to do stuff like that. I'm not familiar with them, but there is a way. I'm just not familiar with the way of doing it. So, any other questions? I'll let Ann help you out with that. Cool. All right, so inside of our calendar tour interface, the top bar is always the same. It starts with the UCSB logo, goes to a search bar, which this time is tailored for your calendar. Then it goes into that app launcher and then your profile icon, right? That is always the same, okay? Below that, we have a few different views of our calendar, which I forgot to reset. But we have a day view, a week view, which is the primary view and your default view at first, a month view, a customizable view. I've set mine to 2 weeks. By default, this will be set to 4 days. I'll show you how to customize that later. And an agenda view, where puts it into a list view, as you can see here. I'm going to work in the week view. Again, it's the most popular view here at UCSB, so that's what we will work in. Navigation buttons allow you to travel forward and back in time. Today obviously brings you back to today, but leaves you in your current view. Then we have a miniature month view here. Only displays 1 month at a time, but you can still click around it, click and drag across the dates that you want to view, things like that, so that is available to you there as well. My calendars and other calendars, we'll talk to those here in a second. Then we get to the actual calendar part where events fall on the dates and on the times that they actually occur. All day events will appear on the very top in that little sliver up there, holidays, things like that. And as you can see, these fall on the date and time that they occur. Today, as you can see, is a little bit darker than any other day, and right now is that red line. If you ever get bored, you can watch that line fall down the screen. But you've got to be really bored. All right, so there are 2 different types of calendars, my calendars and other calendars. My calendars are the calendars that I own. I have full control of these calendars. Let me click down on there. There are 3 calendars given to you by default. 1 represented by your name. This is your default calendar. When you schedule something, by default, it's on that calendar. If I invite you to something, it goes on that calendar. That calendar is shared with everyone that has a UCSB Connect account. Okay? However, the details of your calendar are not shared. If I were to look at your calendar, all I would see is busy, 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 busy. That's it. The reason why we do that is so that way I can check your availability, so that way I'm not spending 5 hours to schedule a 30-minute meeting. Does that make sense? Okay. That was a little exaggerative, but you get the idea. Also, the birthday calendars, that pulls the birthday information off of your contacts. Doesn't pull from any system. If you know someone's birthday and you put it in their contact, it pulls it over to your calendar. That's an option available to you there. Also, reminders pulls that information from your task list, so keep that in mind there as well. Again, you have full control over your calendars under My Calendars. Your primary is represented by your name. You can create more than one calendar though. Under this down arrow of My Calendars, there is Create New Calendar. And you can use this for creating a personal calendar, a team calendar, a department calendar, vacations calendar, whatever it is, right? The possibilities are endless. You can share your calendars with your team and things like that. Very powerful in how you can actually collaborate with those items there. Definitely check out if you are someone that leads a team, things like that. Create a new calendar for the department or something like that and see how it works for sure. Okay. Then we have other calendars. Other calendars you do not own. You may or may not have edit permissions to them, but basically the key thing is you don't own them. Okay. There's a good chance that all you will have is view-only access to most of these calendars. Now, if I expand this, you'll see one calendar that is given to you by default is holidays in the United States. This calendar is managed by Google, not by UCSB, so it does not properly represent any holidays, vacations, things like that. Okay, HR is or someone is making a UCSB calendar, which will be made available to you. Okay. Also, with other calendars, under that little down arrow is a Browse Interesting Calendars. How interesting. Interesting calendars, I've already turned on a few, like phases of the moon, the weather, week numbers, a lot of interesting things there available to you there. So you'll see week numbers, number 29 is on Monday. We can see the weather. If I hover over any of these little icons here, it gives me the highs and the lows for this day, which is not correct. Phase of the moon, we're gonna have a full moon tomorrow. Oh, that's cool. Also in here, as you can see, are some sports teams. I'm a big MLB fan, but also has the NBA, NFL, if you are into that. Go Padres. So one thing that's kind of nice is I can see, dang, they're busy this week. We can see that they are playing way too much, and they're not even home. What the heck? But you get the idea, right? And one thing you'll notice with yesterday's game, we won. We beat the Giants. Ha! But you get the idea there. I was actually born in Northern California, so I'm actually a big Giants fan as well. So yesterday's game was like a love-hate relationship there. But you get the idea of how you can follow your sports teams and keep up as to if they're winning or losing. And you'll notice I'm just clicking on these calendars and it toggles them on and off, so you can do that there as well. Okay? Questions? Yes?
Okay, we already have the Google Calendar set up. Is
Mhm.
this gonna change the Google Calendar we already have set up?
No.
So everything, nothing,
It's the same.
it's,
If you're already using it, you already know this.
so, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry.
But don't leave me. I'll cry. All right. Where was I? My calendars, other calendars. Creating events. 3 ways to create events. The first and honestly the easiest way to create an event, find the date and time your event occurs, give it a click. It will create a 1-hour block by default. From here I can name it My Event. Press enter. There it is. That's the minimum requirement. The what and the when. That's it. Okay. So there's that there. If it's longer or shorter than an hour, click and drag. My longer event. Enter. There it is, right? If I need to reschedule, guess what I do? Click and drag. If I need to change the time, click and drag, right? You get the idea there. If I need to change the duration, guess what I do? Click and drag. You guys are falling asleep on me, but you guys get the idea there. If I have guests on there, it will prompt me to update my guests every time I make a change. Okay, so keep that in mind there. So that's the first way, click or click and drag, okay? The second way is this little down arrow right here. This is called the quick add. Now when I click on the quick add, it gives me this little text box and you can literally type in what your event is, okay? This only works in English. It's not very useful, but it's there and it's cool. So as an example, I'm having a team lunch on Tuesday, no, I'll even go, team lunch tomorrow at noon. Boom, team lunch tomorrow at noon. Ooh, ah. Yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, that's the quick add. That's how it works. Again, only available in English. Recognizes the what, the when, the where. If you add email addresses, it'll send invitations, and it recognizes reoccurrences. So if I said every Tuesday, go on every Tuesday. So kind of a cool tool there. Again, that's the down arrow. Next to the down arrow is the actual create button. Clicking create brings me to a blank event details page. In here, I can name my event. I can set the date, the time, things like that. If I need to, I'll go a little bit into the future here. There we go. Even the time zone, if it occurs in a different time zone, set it as an all-day event. Reoccurrence recognizes any patterned reoccurrences. It does not recognize custom reoccurrences. So those of you that say the 3rd, the 5th, the 19th, the 27th, and the 31st, can't do that, okay? So it only recognizes patterns. However, once you save your initial event, you can duplicate it for those custom events. So that's something to keep in mind there, okay? All right. There are 2 tabs, the Event Details tab and the Find a Time tab. Under Event Details, first thing is where. You can put anything in here if you want to, okay? But the big thing that Google recognizes is addresses, businesses, and landmarks, okay? But if you said, I don't know where we are, the training room, you can put it in there. Google just doesn't recognize it. That's the key thing, okay? But like I said, if I were to go in here and I said I was going to 123 State Street, that seems nice. Right? So it gives you recommendations as to addresses, businesses, things like that, and it helps you find them faster as well. So that's key things to remember there. Earlier I mentioned that one tool that's being offered to you is Google Hangouts. It's an instant messaging tool that you can use over text. They also have a video chat function as well. That's what this is right here. We don't encourage it right now. You can try it, but again, that's what it is. It's not anything that you already use. No phone bridges or anything like that. It's strictly Google Hangouts. Calendar, it only adds it to my primary calendar, right? That's all I got access to. So if you manage more than one calendar, this is how you would choose which calendar it goes on. Description can be as long or as short as you want it to be. There's no character limit there. The key thing to know though is if you put hyperlinks in there, it will be a hyperlink for your guests, just not for you. So you have to do the select, copy, paste, that whole thing. So keep that in mind there. Attachments, the key thing with attachments is this pulls from Google Drive. I hope everything's safe. Okay. It's always dangerous when you do this. When it comes to, again, it pulls from Google Drive. Your attachments for your calendar are never actually on your calendar ever, right? even if you go in here and say, I want to upload, right? It's still putting it onto Google Drive. That's an important thing to remember there, okay? So you're never actually putting attachments in your calendar. It's all managed through Drive. And once you put a file on there, it basically just gives a link to that file in Drive. Does that make sense? Cool. The key thing with that too is make sure those files are shared, okay? Because if you simply add an attachment on here, that doesn't mean that your guests actually have permission to access that. So make sure your attachments in Drive are actually shared. Google's very strict on document security, so that's why it's so hard to do that, okay? All right, color coding. You can color code however you would like. There is no labels. It's literally just colors. Notifications. By default, you will get a pop-up notification 10 minutes before every event, and that is the only notification you will get by default. You can add up to 5 total between notifications and emails for any determined amount of time before your event. Cool? Show me as busy and available. This has to do with me checking your availability. By default, you're busy, okay? Hopefully we're not too busy, but we're busy. You can mark yourself as available for those events that are just like placeholders for things, okay? So keep that in mind. Visibility, by default, we can only see your availability, so busy, busy, busy. We can't see the details, but if you mark this event as public, all the details of this single event will be available to whoever looks at your calendar. But if I select private, that's to deal with those that share their calendar publicly. They can choose to make calendar events private, so it's the opposite of what it would be, okay? Guests can be added from here as well to add your guests. If they're in your contacts, start entering names. If not, just enter an email address. This works internally and externally. You can invite whoever you want. The minimum requirement is an email address. But I can add James Kantrim. I'll add the other James for fun. Anne's in here. Who else is in here? Oh, we'll pick on Ben. Oh, Sandy. There's Sandy. Okay, so there's my guest there, right? Now I added my colleague from my company just for fun. So you would see this little asterisk. That little asterisk indicates that I cannot check that person's availability because that calendar is not in UCSB, okay? However, all these other people are in UCSB, so I can check their availability, okay? So that's a key thing.
If somebody has more than one address, always use the @ucsb.edu address. That is the one that is connected to Connect.
Yeah, so that's an important one to remember there. Dang it, Ann.
Sorry. Sorry.
All right. The little icon right here. That allows you to mark a guest as optional if you want to. So now James Krim is marked as an optional guest. If you need to remove a guest, you simply click on the X right there. That person is no longer in the guest list. If you want, Google will help you find the best time for your meeting using suggested times. And basically what it does is it goes through the entire calendar and it finds the best time for your event. In this case, so it is different. So my event is originally at 11:30, right? But it's saying 3:30 that day is actually the best time for your event, right? And it'll tell me everyone can attend. Now, in situations where you have 20, 30 guests, you will never see that. And so what it will say is like, this is the best time because only one person can't make it. So it does do that kind of work for you as well.
Does it tell you who can't make it?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so it's really kind of cool that way. That's one way. I'm not going to use it yet. I'm going to show you another way as well. Before I do that, options down here. Guests can. The first one is modify event, turned off by default. This allows your guest to modify any detail of the event, including date and time. Okay. Now, these options are universal through the entire guest list. I can't give that option to one person. Okay. That is always going to be for the entire guest list. So the 2 options below that are turned on by default is first, invite others. This allows your guests to invite more guests. So if you want to lock down your guest list, you can turn that off if you want to. The other option is to see the guest list where your guests can see who else is coming to the event. HR loves turning that off. Don't know why. Oh, come on, that was kind of funny. Thank you. All right, so there's those options for you there. The last item in here, find a time tab. This will actually pull up a graphical view of the calendars that it can actually see. That's an important thing there. The blue box representing the time that I'm proposing my event. As we can see, Anne is the busy person today, but I can just reschedule by dragging that down if I need to. I can even change the duration by dragging on the bottom of it as well. So there are some options for you there to do that. Okay?
How did you do that again?
I just find a time tab.
Oh, find a time.
Yep, find a time tab right there, and it brought up this view. Cool. All right, and if you want to, let's say, oh, we don't really care about Sandy if you can make it or not. You can hide that if you want to as well. So options are available to you there. All right. In here, there is no save. No, there is no send button, just a save button. Okay, that's an important thing to remember because right when you click save, it's going to prompt you right away to send those notifications out. Now, here's a key thing. It's important. That is important to remember. Even if you click don't send, anyone that does not have a Connect account, it still sends the notification. Okay, this is only for people that have Google Calendars. That's an important thing to remember. So that's why we say in all cases, just send your notifications, right? It's the best thing to do. For those of you that save your events as drafts, right? Can't do that anymore. Once you add a guest, it adds it to their calendar. Even if you click don't send, it adds it to their calendar. You're just not sending them the email if they have a Connect account. Does that make sense? Okay. Now we saved our event on Wednesday. You'll notice it's orange because that's how we color coded it, but it's still surrounded by a blue box. Okay, so that's an important thing to remember there. So it still represents the color calendar that is actually on. If I single click on the event, I can see the details. The name's in gray. They have not responded yet. Once they do respond, their name will turn black if they say yes, or their name will get crossed out if they say no. Does that make sense? You'll notice the where also has a link to a map. So when I click on that, it takes me to what? A Google map. Look at that. And one thing that's nice is it also allows you to get directions. Now, web interface, yeah, that's kind of cool, but where I love this the most is on my phone, right? So I'm being told I have to be in some training room in some building on some street. Just hit take me there and it takes me there, right? So it's one thing that I really like. So that is the calendar.
UCSB?
It does not, it has the use, I've seen Google with the UCSB building names, but again, if I said rec center, it would recognize that because that's on Google Maps. I've seen that. But if I said this room inside the rec center, from there it gets confused. So, yeah. Cool. All right. So there's that event. One last thing when it comes to managing your events. When you're invited to an event, one, you will get the email if they click send, hopefully, and you're in Google, right? And in that email, you will see the option to respond to the event from there. Okay. Inside of your calendar view, I'm invited to 2 events in here. Do you guys see them? They were there in the beginning. You should have seen them. But the way I know I need to respond to an event is based on this little reply marker right there. It's telling me I need to reply to the event. Now I can open this up by double clicking on it. Here it is here, right? And on the top is where I can respond to the event. Now I'll just say no to this event. Notice the note field. If you add a note, let's say there's like 30 guests on here, your guests will see that note if they look at this calendar event. So don't go into that note field and say, John's going. He smells like cheese. I don't want to sit next to him, right? Because John might see it. No one in here is John, right? That's too generic. Yeah, sorry. But you get the idea there, right? So don't add your notes talking about someone because there's a good chance they'll see it, okay? Click on save. I want you to notice that event on Friday. It's still on my calendar, right? But it's crossed out, it's dim, right? So why does it do that? I'm not going, but why is it still there? Because lately it disappears, right? For those of you that still use Outlook Calendar. But someone said it, changed my mind, right? I don't know who scheduled this, but let's say Ann called up and say, hey, Ryan, notice you canceled the lunch meeting. Did I mention I was buying? Oh, what do you know? Now I can single click on this and change my mind. Make sense? Ann's like, no. But you guys get the idea there, right? Cool. All right, so that is managing those details. Last thing, any questions before I continue? Yes.
Good question. So when you're creating an event, you could set notifications. You set up to 5. Do your guests get those notifications?
No, you cannot set the notifications for your guests. Those are just for you.
Bombard them.
Yeah, right. When we were on Outlook in my old company, our secretary would bombard us with like 30 notifications all the time. It was between emails and pop-ups. I don't know how she managed my pop-ups, but it was annoying. So.
Did you say that Microsoft Calendar was going to be migrated over?
Yes, your Microsoft Calendar will be migrated over tonight and will be available 7 a.m. tomorrow? 6 a.m.?
If you're using Connect Calendar already and you are using both and you have duplicates and you don't want it to be migrated, then you need to let us know. Carl.
Go talk to Ann or Tom.
Carl. I'm pretty sure you're using Connect Calendar, but it depends on if you're, some people were doing duplicates so that they not really necessary to migrate them, but if you want them to come over because it's safe, better to be safe than sorry, it will be
I
migrated.
think there's very little duplication.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can take a look at that. Last question.
I'm not sure how this is gonna work. People, when we collaborate with other UCs, and they send us an outlook to meet with them on, how's that gonna play out as far as, we'll get the email saying, is this data available?
And it,
Mhm.
and it will put it on.
So then how's that work?
It, just like it normally does.
So you accept it, the
Mm-hmm.
invitation, and then it's gonna dump it into this calendar then?
You'll see it right away in this calendar. Once you get an invitation, the way that Google handles ICS files, those calendar invitations, is it dumps it into your calendar, and then your calendar actually is what sends the email to your Google Mail. So that's where, even if it comes from outside, from another UC or anything like that, you'll see this appear. It's still the same thing. Yep, still the same thing. So you'll see it on your calendar and in your mail. And the downside to that, though, is I just responded to this, right? The email's still in my inbox. I still have to go get rid of it. So that's like that's how it handles it. So cool. All right. So to continue on, let's take a look at some settings available to us up here above my head, right? Click on that, and you'll notice the same thing. We have the display density. There's that help link. Wait, where is it? Oh, there it is, right there. They moved it on me. It used to be on the bottom. And of course, where we're going to go is the actual settings. Okay. Not a lot of tabs on here, but to be good on there, let's just go through time zone, Pacific time zone. If you go to the East Coast and you open this up, it's going to ask if you want to adjust all your events and things by the 3 hours, stuff like that. You'll notice I also gave mine a label, SB for Santa Barbara. A date format, I go by month, day, year. I also go by AM, PM, so that's the date and time format I prefer. As I scroll down, working hours, I set mine Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that's the only pattern I can set it up as, right? I can say Monday, Wednesday, Friday if I wanted to, but 9 to 5 is the only time I can set. What's nice about this is if you invite me to an event outside of these hours, it doesn't prevent you, but you will get a pop-up saying, you know, this is outside of Ryan's normal working hours. He'll probably say, no, are you sure you want to invite him? Okay, so that's what that does. As I go through, you can hide your weekend since none of us ever work on the weekend, right? Right? Default view is the week view. That custom view is the 2-week view. You can set that down to 2 days or up to 4 weeks. For me, personally, I like the 2-week view, like I said. I'll set it to 4 days so you can see what it will look like when you log in. You can type in your location, and this is how your weather gets shown onto your calendar. So that is available to you there. And the last thing, show events you have declined, right? If you say yes, it's still on your calendar. But one of the native Outlook functionalities was if you hit no, it just disappeared from your calendar. So that's that there. So if you say no to an event with this one selected, it will disappear from your calendar. So you can have that option for you there, okay? What I changed is the 4-day view. So there is the 4-day view, right? So that's what that looks like. And you'll notice that my time zone over here off to this side is SB. One thing you may have noticed is you can add one additional time zone right next to that if you want to as well, okay? Back into settings, a couple things to be aware of under the Calendars tab. In here, my calendars, other calendars. So for the other calendars, let's say the Padres are really upsetting me, I can just unsubscribe from their calendar if I need to. That's all I have to do, okay? I'm going to save them though. My calendar, represented again by my name, 2 options for you. Edit notifications, clicking on here. There's 2 sections of this to be aware of. The top section is how my default notifications show up. So in this case, you can see I get a notification 10 minutes before every event. If I want more, I can add more. If I don't want any, I can remove them all. If I want emails over pop-ups, I can do that as well. So you can set that there, again, maximum of 5. Below is how you get notified in your inbox for certain things. You'll notice that I get an email for new, changed, canceled, and the responses to the events, okay? For those of you that don't like those, this person accepted, this person accepted, this person accepted, that person accepted as well, right? If you don't like those, you can turn that off right here, okay? So it is available to you. All right, so that is the notification settings. Under here is also your sharing settings. So for those of you that like to share your calendar or delegate your calendar, this is how you would do it. You'll notice that I have full control of my calendar, but if I want to share it with more people, to have view access, to have edit access, whatever it is, I can add that here and manage it all here, okay? So that is the calendar settings. Under labs, this is where you can go to turn on some labs that are available to you. One that I have been using already is hide morning and night, so you can basically collapse the hours you're sleeping or not working. As I scroll down, another lab that I like is next meeting. And I also like the world clock. For me personally, I work with different time zones across the world, so it's kind of nice showing that there as well. Click on save. Again, you'll notice that midnight to 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. to midnight again are collapsed, right, into a single line item. So one thing that's nice is whenever my calendar loads, I'm looking at what I need to look at, right? There is every once in a while, depending if your browser's out of date or anything like that, when you load your calendar, it always goes to midnight every time, okay? So that's where this is nice, because now you're always going to focus on the hours you care about, okay? Oh, also over here, my next meeting is in 24 hours, and the world clock here, if I click on this settings link right here, then I will be able to choose which time zones I want to view. For me personally, I view about 12 time zones, but you get the idea of how that will work for you there, okay? And one thing that's nice is you'll notice it says the current times. If I single click on an event, you'll notice it adjusts those times to that event. So kind of a cool feature there. Cool. Any questions about your calendar? All right. Which time we got? Oh, we're doing good. All right. Things that we discussed, we took a tour of we talked about how to get into our calendar. We took a tour of the calendar. We saw the difference between my and other calendars. Remember, you own your calendars. Other calendars you don't own. You may or may not have edit access to them. We also saw how to create events and the details that can go inside of those events. We saw how to manage the events, especially the ones we get invited to, and some various settings and labs. Last thing we're going to talk about is your contacts, just some items you need to know about the contact list when it comes to working inside of that tool. For those of you that are getting your contacts also migrated over, I'm going to show you a tool to help clean them up as well. So how do we get to our contacts? We're going to take a tour of the interface. My and other contacts. We're going to see how to find certain contacts. We're going to talk about how to recreate those personal groups, because again, those are not being migrated. You will need to recreate your personal groups, and some various settings and labs that are available to you. All right, so we've been in my calendar. I'm actually going to switch back to my mail. How do I get to my contacts? There's two ways. Okay, that way will come later. What's the other way? That way will come later. What's the other way? I see you all pointing. All right, remember, under the UCSB logo, there is mail and contacts. And what this does is it basically just loads your contacts inside of your mail. That's what it's doing. So next time I go around and click the UCSB logo, it goes back to my mail. So that's a key thing to remember there. But all of you are pointing over here, so click on this, and there's my contacts on the bottom of this list. Click on that. In a new tab, my contacts will open, and you can see them here. Way too small, though. Let's blow this up a little bit. There we go. All right. Top bar, always the same. Logo, search bar, app launcher, profile icon. We have a few different types of contacts available to us. The three to worry about: my contacts are your contacts. The contacts that we migrate for you will show up under my contacts. There are also other contacts. Other contacts is an auto-generated list. So if you were to email me today, right, at my UCSB email address, I would show up under your other contacts because I'm not in your main contact list, right? But you've corresponded with me. And the reason we do that is that way you can find me again in the future a little bit quicker. That's all that's for, okay? One thing you can do under other contacts is you can select someone and add them to my contacts if you want to as well. So that is available to you. Let's say you go in here, it's like, I need this person in my contacts, it'll do that. So keep that in mind. And depending on how your phone gets set up, anyone in my contacts will sync to your phone and vice versa. So it all depends on how you set up your phone, but that's something to keep in mind there as well. The other one is the directory. This is literally everybody in UCSB, including students? I don't think it's including students. Yeah, so just staff and faculty, okay? So this is everyone in here. As you can see, A's go on for days, okay? So this is not an effective way to go find Roger. Does that make sense? So how would we do that? Search. So you guys get the idea there. Search works very well. If I do a search for, I'm going to do a search for Brett. Just press enter. And what I want to show you with this search is it looks everywhere, right? So it found the Brett Smith in my contacts, the one at UCSB to be specific. It found the Brett Smith at Apereo, right? And also looked and found all these Bretts in the domain, in the throughout the university. Does that make sense there? So you will be able to go in, run those searches if you want to. If you want to type in specific names, that helps narrow down your searches, so keep that in mind there. But yeah, make sense there? That's how search works. And again, let's say through here, oh, I know this Brett, I want to add him to my contacts. You can do that as well, okay? All right, back to my contacts. I have 5 contacts in here. A lot of you have those personal groups, those personal, not distributions, they're personal groups that you've created inside of your contacts. You can import them. I'll talk about that here in a second, but to manually recreate them, the first thing that really helps when it comes to creating your groups is to first have those contacts inside of my contacts, okay? Then the next thing I would do is select those contacts, 1 or more. I'll select these 3 here, and you'll notice that the groups icon has appeared up here on top. I can click on this, I can add them to any previous groups that I have created, or I can type in a new group name, and what's today, Monday? Monday training. And you'll notice now it gives me the option to create that group. Click on that, and you'll notice off here, off to the side, there's that Monday training. I'll deselect these guys, but you also notice that the Monday training kind of appears like a label to these guys, right? So I can see that Sandy here is a part of the IT support group that I've created and the Monday training group that I've created, okay? What's nice about that group now is if I go to compose an email, I can type in that name of the group and it adds those contacts. My calendar events, sharing files on Drive, it works throughout all the Google products, so keep that in mind there, okay? Inside of a contact record, let's pick on James. I'll open up his record since he actually works here with all my contacts. You'll notice James has put up his own profile photo, so that's why that appears there. I don't stalk his Facebook, okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm not creepy. Then we have 2 sections of our contacts. On the bottom is the directory profile, so we can see there's his name, there's his title, there's his email address, things like that. If he had a phone number on file that he wanted to share, it would show up there, okay? Everything down here is in the directory, okay? And anything in the middle here is just for you, okay? So if you add an address, a birthday, a phone number, anything, and even add notes in the notes field here, again, those are just for you. They don't sync to the directory or anything like that, okay? They're just for you. Does that make sense? Cool. So there's that. Couple tools available to you under this More button right here. First is import, okay? Now the import tool, again, we're gonna migrate your contacts for you, but where the import tool is handy is when it comes to recreating your personal groups again. One thing you can do in Outlook is export the contacts of a personal group, okay? And when you import them into here, it imports them as a group. All you have to do is rename that group. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's that. If you ever need to print your contacts, that's available to you there. Find and merge duplicates. I can already tell you I don't have any duplicates. You can see that as well, but this is a really good tool. Never deletes any information, it just merges information, so keep that in mind there. You click on that and it will say I found duplicates for this person, this person, this person. And if you see a lot of James Smiths, right, you might want to make sure they're actually different James Smiths, if that makes sense. Restore contacts. If you ever delete your contacts, we hold on to it for 30 days and you can restore it if you ever need to. And the only options we give you is to sort by first name or sort by last name. Okay? So there's that. Did I cover everything? Personal groups, look for contacts, mine, other one. Yeah, hey, look at that, I did it. So that is your contacts. Any questions there? All right, a couple slides to wrap up real quick and get you out of here a few minutes early. This is a new tool. For a lot of you, well actually for most of you, if not all of you, you will have to use it tomorrow for sure. Because again, we have to come to your machines to add that connector tool. For me personally, I like the web interface more than the Outlook interface. So, and this is coming from someone that has migrated as well. But just keep in mind that this is going to be a new tool. It's going to be frustrating at first because again, it's new. But email is email. You will still be able to find all of that information. Few things I want to challenge you with as well. First is those conversation threads if you choose to use the web interface. Great tool when it comes to organizing your mail. It just takes a little bit getting used to. So I encourage you to stick with it for a few weeks before getting frustrated and throwing your laptop out the window. Just try working with it a little bit before you turn them off. Another one, keyboard shortcuts. Those again are turned off by default. I highly encourage you to turn them on. A lot of people actually don't know how much they use keyboard shortcuts subconsciously, right? So make sure you check those out. Make sure you understand the list because, again, some are the same, but some are different. So you have to check out those keyboard shortcuts available to you there. And look through all the labs. I only showed you 3 labs from each tool, okay? So make sure you look through there. There's a lot of useful stuff in there that you can use for your day-to-day work inside of Mail. Again, the resources available to you, hopefully you've written down connect.ucsb.edu. Again, the most important link you will need. This is what you use to log in and where you will find support information, such as those web pages that have a lot of quick information available to you. Also, Google Help, it's always under that gear, even in contacts, Mail, Calendar, Drive. You click on that gear, there will be a help site that it will take you to and help you out with anything that you need. And with that, any last questions? All right, thank you. Thank you. I'm here, Ann's here, James is here. If you guys do have any questions, maybe something specific to your workflow, maybe we can help. But there's a good chance that we won't be able to truly help you until tomorrow, but we might be able to answer any questions for you. Cool? Yes. Okay, come see me. Thank you guys. Have a great day. What's up?